How's it going, lads? Jack here from Absolute Boxing. I'm back with Coup, and we're just going to hop straight into the Wilder versus Chisora undercard.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Again, one of those fights that it feels like it's a bit of a miracle that it hasn't happened already, considering how long both these guys are around.
Yeah, I think it's madness that Chisora still kicking it. Both of them after, both of their 50th fights? I think this is called the 100th fight.
Yeah, number 50 for both of them. And these are guys that, look, if you look at their records, they've been around for just so long. Like Derek Chisora around back in the days of fighting David Hay, fighting Robert Lenius back around 2011. And then you look at the likes of Deontay Wilder's record, fighting Robert Lenius pretty recently. So some of these guys, they've been around a long time.
Yeah, they're definitely at their tail end of their career, but I think Wilder has said that he isn't retiring after this fight, even if it is a win or a loss, which is mad. And Chisora has said that he is going to retire after this fight, but I don't believe that either, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with Wilder, I don't think Wilder's ever really hidden the fact that he's in this for the money. Even pretty early on in his career, it's always been a big factor, and he doesn't necessarily lie about it. Whereas, obviously, Derek Chisora, that's kind of his MO. That is his shtick. That's what he tells people he's here for. And in fairness, you got to look at his record. You know, the man's been competitive for so long that he's usually good value, regardless of who he fights.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting fight, but I think we should start off with some of the undercard.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah, I think we should only really cover the kind of co-main and the fight under that. I think all the other fights are
not too
important to us.
Yeah, it's pretty fair to say it's not the Magnificent Seven again, is it?
No, it's a very top-heavy card.
Back to business as usual, really.
Yeah. This is the second Misfit Pro card I think they're after putting on. I think their first one was Conlon Walsh, which was two weeks ago now, I think. And I think they were just trying to work out the kinks of being a new promotion, even though there's just a rebranding of Wasserman Promotions.
Yeah, look, in terms of the Conlon fight, the less said, the better. Not a great production, and even in terms of the crowd that were there for it, for some reason I just feel like that fight didn't really get much momentum, because if you notice, the SSE Airtricity Arena was actually half empty. So
yeah,
hopefully this works out a little bit better.
I don't think MF Pro are doing a great job at promoting fights, to be honest. Even this fight alone, like Wilder versus Chisora, you'd be expecting it to be a big spectacle, and I think because it's co-promoted by Queensbury, I think they're doing a lot of the work in promoting it.
Yeah, and I suppose that's to be expected, really. Look, you're not going to get anybody longer in the game than the likes of Queensbury, especially in the UK. So look, they know how to sell a fight. Again, you know, when it comes to the likes of MF Pro, probably not the best start, but let's see where they go. Early days.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to hop into the first fight, so?
Yeah, sure. What one are we starting with?
I'd say we start with the Bentley fight.
Okay. Yeah, so Denzel Bentley versus Indri Saavedra. I think that's how you pronounce it, at least. Yeah,
this fight hasn't been promoted very well in its own right. Saavedra, I've never heard of him myself. He's 17-1-1, and yeah, it's for the WBO interim world middleweight title.
I'm not even going to tell you my thoughts on that. It's not worth thinking about, right? Like, as I said last week, there's a title for everything. Everybody has one, so it's at the point where I don't know where they find these things, but they have absolutely no value. They're welcome to fight for it, though. I will watch.
The one thing that I think is strange about this fight is it's been fought for an interim title. The world champion, that I think he's in recess now, is Yanabek Alakanuli, and he's actually after failing a drug test recently enough, and I think he's after being given a ban. So I don't know why this is for an interim title. Both men, like whoever wins this fight, are going to have to fight a drug cheat, is what they're basically saying, which I don't understand whatsoever.
It is a bit strange the way that some of the sanctioning bodies treat scenarios like this. By the sounds of it, he's kind of being left off the hook a little bit. But look, I can't say it's surprising. I really can't say it's surprising, because you see this behavior with other sanctioning bodies as well, where they don't really seem to know what guys who are either inactive or drug cheats. They just don't really know what to do with them. And especially if it's a favored guy within that organization, they tend to kind of leave him alone a little bit. So look, probably a similar scenario here playing out.
Yeah. So I'd say we just jump straight into predictions on this fight. I don't think there's much to talk about, really.
Well, looking at Saavedra's record, I had a little bit of a look at it before we came on. The guy's mostly fought in Mexico, so very little footage out there for the guy. We can't really find too much on him. He's had 2 fights in Australia, so I suppose that's a little bit of exposure. He's been out there, fought for the WBO Intercontinental middleweight belt, which he actually won. Ooh. And then he had a draw against Cesar Mateo Tapia in the United States for the IBF International middleweight belt. So again, a draw on that one. From what I can see, his last fight, a guy that was 13-2, so he won against him. But there's no real names on this guy's record. There's not really anything to measure him by. So it's very hard to tell how he's going to do. But just on paper, not super impressive. I think that's fair to say.
No, definitely not. Especially compared to Denzel Bentley. Like, he is 21-3-1, but he seems to be getting better in nearly every fight that we've seen him in. He has a few losses to the likes of Felix Cash, Yanabek himself, and Nathan Heaney. But he seems to have built back. His last fight was against Brad Pauls back in December of 2024, which is a long time out of the ring, which might be interesting. But yeah, he is a good contender in the British scene. Might be European level.
Yeah, I mean, just look at him on paper right now. You're seeing that he beat Brad Pauls, but that's what, 13, 14 months ago now? Even longer, actually. Sorry, yeah. That's what, the best part of 16 months ago.
16 months, yeah.
So look, you see Brad Paul's performance last week, and then you look at Bentley's record, and it looks even more impressive for that reason. But again, very, very long layoff. Very long layoff. Yeah. And we don't know anything about his opponent, really. So you kind of have one of those scenarios where it's an unknown quantity against a guy who's had a massive layoff. So this could actually go either way, assuming that his opponent is any good. Wouldn't really surprise me.
Yeah, it's very strange, the layoff. I know for Bentley, there was supposed to be a fight in November against Nathan Heaney. It was supposed to be a rematch, and that fell through because of Derek Chisora versus Dillian White not happening. And there possibly was other fights that have fallen through for him. I'm not too certain about them, but I know for a fact there was supposed to be a fight in November. And since that didn't happen, he's been sat on the shelf even longer.
It does make you wonder, just in terms of, I suppose, matchmaking, considering that Bentley's been out of the ring for so long. Maybe this guy's a little bit of a soft touch so he can get back into the swing of things. Because overall, as an opponent, he just doesn't seem to be particularly high level. I don't even know if the guy is European level, really, that he's fighting, if you were to make a comparison. So it's really an unknown quantity. We don't know what we're going to get until we see him in the ring on the night.
Yeah, it is interesting. Both men are ranked, I think, number 1 and 2 in the division by the WBO. So it must mean something, but it could just be another padded record that has kind of pushed him into that spot.
The funny thing is, even if looking at the guy's record, I mean, I don't even know what I call this padded. Like, he does have a loss, he does have a draw, and he's from Venezuela. So look, again, I just don't. Maybe the guy's good and he just hasn't had very much exposure. But given his record at the moment, I can't see anything that stands out. I can't see anything that indicates that he's going to win this. But at the same time, because we don't have much information on him, who knows? You know, it could be a bit of a surprise, especially given Bentley's layoff. You know, we've seen guys come back from layoffs before, and they're a shell of their former selves.
Yeah, especially just long out. But he has been like he's consistently in the gym. He does train alongside Brad Pauls now, which is an interesting one. So he's obviously staying active in that way, but the ring rust might be there. We just won't know until tonight.
Yeah, look, just in terms of predictions, I know a lot more about Bentley than I do about his opponent. So in this case, I'm just going to assume Denzel Bentley's going to win this by unanimous decision.
I'm gonna kind of stray off a small bit and say I think it's going to be a knockout. Now I don't have full belief in it, to be honest, but I'm going to take a shot in the dark. He has one loss on his record, and that's to I can't even pronounce his name, Mikel William. And that was a unanimous decision. And Mikel William has 3 losses in a row now, so kind of proves that he's not the best boxer. So maybe I could just be talking to my ass now. But if he's not a good boxer, then he's going to get landed on a bunch.
Look, styles make fights, and they usually make fights where we know what the style is, right? In this case, we don't know what this guy's style is. We don't really know a whole lot about him. Most you can really hope for is that it's an entertaining fight. Could be an upset simply for the fact that he's a little bit of an unknown quantity. But I'm playing it safe still on my prediction with this one. I'm going to say Denzel Bentley, unanimous decision, and possibly not a very good fight if Bentley is going to be as rusty as he probably will be considering the layoff.
Yeah. Okay. Will we hop into the next one?
Yeah, sure. So Vidal Riley versus Mateusz Masternak.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one, in my opinion. Vidal Riley, 13-0, 7 KOs. Fighting Masternak, who has been around for a long time. I think you have more to say about him than I would.
Yeah, look, even when I was looking at this matchup earlier on today, part of me just assumed when I heard Masternak, I just immediately said, remember that guy from years ago that fought Tony Bellew? And didn't for 1 second assume it was the same guy. I'm not even sure why. But then obviously I went onto his box rec, had a little bit of a look at what he's done in the last couple of years, and it turns out it is the same guy that lost to Tony Bellew 11 years ago at this point. So that kind of tells you everything. He's been around. He's been in there with some decent names. I wouldn't say he's been in with all the top guys, but he's been with pretty decent names in the division. I suppose the standouts being obviously the likes of Tony Bellew. Even a couple of years before that, he managed to beat Jean-Marc Mormec, who admittedly at that point in his career in 2014 was kind of going downhill. Beyond that, I suppose the standouts really Uniel Dorticos. Dorticos is a pretty good fighter who's been in there with some top-level operators. And then obviously he has a loss to Chris Billum-Smith. Again, one that he was pretty unfortunate to lose when it came down to it.
I thought he was actually winning that fight, to be honest, but age was a big factor in that, and I think the body just started to wear on him, and it was a retirement in the 8th round where he was already after cutting Billum-Smith over his eye. It was becoming a messy fight, but I think he was leading the charge, and for him to go out that way, it was quite a shame.
Well, the other side of this too is we're just looking at his record, and that fight was in 2023. So look, he's had a couple of wins since. They've all been in Poland. So I'm not sure how that bodes, considering that, look, he looked old in 2023. How's he going to look now? You know?
Yeah. So he has 56 fights altogether. He's only been stopped twice. I don't know if they're counting the retirement as a KO loss, but he's going to be in there for as long as he can stay in there. It'd be interesting to see how Vidal Riley's able to to go about that. Vidal Riley doesn't seem to be much of a puncher himself, but he seems to be a brilliant boxer.
Yeah, he's a pretty smooth operator, and I suppose looking at the point that he's in his career, look, he's on the come up. This is only, I believe, something like his 14th fight.
14th, yes.
Yeah, so look, he's pretty early on. The likes of a Masternak, a little bit over the hill, to put it lightly, but the other side of it is too super experienced. Knows the tricks of the trade, has been in there with some really high level operators in the past, albeit he's lost to all of them. Pretty much every time he's stepped up, he's lost. So again, kind of looking at what this is, really, you're talking kind of a passing of the torch, new guy versus old guard. It should be expected that Riley wins this one pretty easy.
Yeah, Vidal Riley in his last fight in, I think it was in the Tottenham Stadium on the undercard of the first Eubank Ben fight, he faced Chev Clark for the British Cruiserweight title, and he completely boxed rings around Clark for the whole 12 rounds, winning it by unanimous decision, which is quite impressive. But Clark was after a loss before that as well, so we don't know where he stood before that fight. But to be outboxing someone for 12 rounds, I know the boxing ring itself wasn't great for either boxer either, with it being raining and the canvas being slippy. So that kind of added another bit to it. But he was able to comfortably box him to a great decision.
Yeah, and look, the only other thing I would say is that's almost 12 months ago at this point.
Yeah,
so another long layoff.
Yeah, that was back the 26th of April of 2025.
Yeah, that's a significant layoff for a guy who's only kind of getting into his prime now.
Yeah, I think there was a problem with Boxer at the time. He was signed with Boxer, and when Sky Sports and Boxer split, it was it's after leaving a lot of boxers left in the dark, really. Lauren Price, another boxer that's fighting this weekend on the BBC. This is her first fight in a massive gap as well, after her fighting Natasha Jonas. So it kind of shows a lot of them are just left in the dark.
Yeah, I have to assume they're probably waiting out contracts. Just the only way that you could really make sense of it. But yeah, I mean, look, a one year gap when you're kind of just reaching your prime, not really ideal by any means. I think Masternak, in that sense, could be maybe a little bit dangerous, but I don't think he's going to have enough left in order to really challenge Riley. So I think this one's pretty straightforward overall. I think Riley wins it. Probably wins it by, I'm going to say, a late stoppage in this case. I think Masternak's body might give in on him again.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty interesting just to see how Vidal Riley does in this fight, because Masternak is a tough guy, but as you say, like he's old. He's probably a lot more brittle than he once was. So that's going to be a big factor of it. I think he'll probably outbox him to another decision win. I don't see him stopping him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at Masternak's record even, and maybe it's a bit harsh to pull this, but lost by unanimous decision to Tony Bellew 11 years ago. No offense to Tony Bellew, not exactly known to be a great technician. So 11 more years on that body, and he's against a guy who's a pretty decent technician. I don't see it ending well for him. So as I said, going to go with the late stoppage. It'll probably be a retirement. Actually, I'd imagine it's probably going to be another issue with his body. And that's the end of it. So I'd say a pretty straightforward night for Riley, assuming again that the layoff hasn't really affected him.
Yeah, I could see that for sure, retirement, because I think the pace of Riley, he is a very good boxer, so he's going to keep on top of you if you're not throwing back. But I'm still going to stick to a unanimous decision, hoping that I'm right.
Yeah, watch us be incredibly wrong. you know.
Yeah, Masternak goes out there and knocks him out in the first round and egg on our face.
Yeah, watch it be the upset of the year. But no, I'm pretty confident with this one. Yeah, famous last words, but I just don't see Masternak having enough left in the tank at this point in his career. Like he's had a 20-year pro career. He actually turned pro in, I believe, 2006. So for context, 2006. Like Manny
I was
Pacquiao
5
probably
years
wasn't
old.
even in his prime.
Yeah, I was 5 years old.
I was probably playing like Fight Night Round 3 on the PS2 back in 2006.
Probably didn't even know what boxing was.
There you go. There you go. Well, Masternak did, and he was a pro 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, I don't think there is much more to talk about that fight. So let's just jump into the main event. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I suppose just to give context, look, as I said, two guys that have been around forever. Derek Chisora kind of developed into this kind of cult figure over the years, having fought pretty much everybody in Britain at this point in his career, in it for the payday, doesn't hide that fact. You know, fantastic gatekeeper in the division, I think would be the best term that you could give to him. And again, it's easy to get behind the guy. You know, he's been there, he's done that. He has a bit of a personality that he's not afraid to show. Again, you know, there's going to be people there cheering him on. And he is saying that this is his last fight. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. Who knows? Maybe the winner of this is going to fight, you know, the winner of Atauma versus Franklin.
Oh, no.
Who knows?
No, don't say that.
You never know. You never know. I don't want to see it either, to be honest. Even if there's a spectacular performance from either of these guys, I absolutely do not want to see that. I don't want to see elder abuse. No. And in this case, I'm sorry to say, but that's what it's slowly turning into. Chisora, I believe, is now... What age is Chisora? 42, 43, something like that?
They're both in their 40s.
I think Wilder's about 40 or 41.
Yeah, Wilder is 41 years old. Or no, he's 40 years old. And Derek Chisora is... it doesn't actually say it on here. That's handy.
There you go. Derek Chisora is 90 years old. In terms of his body, I'd imagine at this point it sure isn't what it was even 5 years ago. Like the guy is taking.
Yeah, Chisora is 42 years old.
42, and no 42. Offense to Chisora, he's always been a great opponent for everybody, but he's going to be an old 42. I think we're going to get the same Derek Chisora that we've always gotten. He always tries his best. Don't get me wrong, but when it comes down to it, Deontay Wilder, not exactly been in his prime for some time now, especially his last few fights.
Yeah, I think Wilder has completely fell off of what he once was. Like, even if we look back on some of his fights, his last one was in 2025 against Tyrell Herndon. I don't think any of us heard of him before.
It was another one of those fights where it was like they were trying to rejuvenate his career, and because he beat what is essentially a tomato can, it was presented that, look, Wilder's back, you know, bomb squad, here we go, you know, prime Wilder, just to sell another fight. Like, there was no other reason for him to have that fight.
Yeah, like this is Wilder's last performance. I don't think it proves anything really. The guy was not there to fight him. Kind of stood there and just took sloppy punches like this. And
every time
you can see.
Every time I see Wilder move, my knees start to hurt.
Yeah, it's not a nice watch. I don't believe anyway.
He's never had good movement overall. He had decent movement in the third Fury fight, and that's arguably peak Wilder. But before or since, he's never really had good movement.
No, but like even the punches now, they don't seem to hit with as much venom. And like if that's the stoppage for a fight, like it shows what level he's at now.
It's sad. I won't lie. It's pretty sad to watch, especially the likes of the Zhili Zhang fight. Where he turned his back.
Even you can see here, like this face does not show someone that's too happy in his own performance.
There's no bomb squad there. It's like a different.
No.
It's like a different guy. Even seeing Wilder since the third Fury fight, he's just never been the same.
No, not at all. And I think it was Chisora's last fight was against Otto Wallen, which I thought was actually a bit of a barn burner myself. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know about yourself.
Good fight. Honestly, a good fight. But in the end of the day, like, let's understand that Chisora's always had a ceiling. Every time he steps up, he pretty much loses. And Otto Wallin was never exactly, super world class by any means. He's been in there
No,
with
not at
some
all.
big names, but let's not forget that, look, Wilder has a ceiling. Well, Wilder's ceiling has been an awful lot higher than Chisora's in terms of success, I guess, not necessarily in terms of skill. But Otto Wallin, like, fair enough. Look, the guy was a contender, but he was never much more than that.
No, and like I like for someone like Chisora, like he's gonna bring it to anyone he fights. It's always the kind of same predictable drop the head down and just start throwing and hope that something lands. But it impresses me his cardio more than anything. Even from round 2, he's already looking like he's gassed out. But he keeps that same pace then for another eight rounds, which is just madness. You can tell that he's working on his cardio mad.
Yeah, look, Derek Chisora was never exactly known for his power. So he has to have a gas tank. But the only thing is, at 42 years old, his 50th fight, how long can that gas tank realistically last? Now, in terms of matchmaking, if there's anybody that you really probably don't need a gas tank with, it's Deontay Wilder, because the man himself, at this point in his career, doesn't exactly have much of a gas tank himself. His motivation is questionable. It does really seem like he's there for the payday at this point. As I said, not that he really hid that, throughout his career. I think even he's aware that in terms of actual talent, he's always had a pretty low ceiling and some very, very clever matchmaking in order to make him champion for as long as he was. But I think even looking at Fury's last couple of performances, don't get me wrong, the first fight with Usyk was pretty good. Second one, not so much. It did look like Fury was a little bit faded in that. Again, we'll see how he does next week when he fights Makhmudov. But at the same time, I think those fights were very flattering to Deontay Wilder. Obviously, the best he's ever been, the best performances that he ever put in, and the closest to world class that he ever really looked. But in hindsight, against Fury, somebody who, in his own right, his own CV is a little bit questionable.
Yeah, like comparing his resume to Chisora's, there's a big gap difference of the level that he fought at. Like Chisora was always around British European level, and then every time he pushed up to world level, he was kind of found out. Well, at least he was giving it a good go. Whereas Wilder got the belt off of Bermain Stavern, and after that he kind of coasted until the fight against Ortiz, and coasted again until the Fury fights. And since then, he's been coasting downwards, in my opinion, and hasn't shown much.
Well, even before we started, right, the way that I described Wilder was never has so much been done with so little. And that's really it. Deontay Wilder has one fantastic punch, arguably an all-time great punch in him, an all-time great power. Outside of that, the man is fundamentally a terrible boxer. He's not even a good fighter, to put it simply. He's not a technical boxer. He's not a brawler, really, overall, when you look at the type of fights that he's been in, maybe other than the Fury fights. But when it comes down to it, he's a guy that has one punch. And that one punch, you'd imagine, probably won't leave him, even though in his last couple of performances, he's been super questionable.
Yeah, like I'm still surprised that he's even got this fight. Like looking back on his past couple of performances, the Parker loss, the Zhang loss, and then the Herden fight, like it didn't prove anything really. It probably proved more that he isn't a good boxer anymore, and he has nothing left in him.
You know it's bad when a guy that you're meant to not just win against, you're supposed to have a really impressive win against. Like everything was set up for him to look good in that fight, and he still somehow managed to look terrible. He still managed to look old, and he still managed to look just generally incapable. Like, as I said, you have to watch Wilder through a lens, right? You can't look at Wilder in the same way that you'd look at 99% of other fighters. You have to look at it as, this is a guy that has one freakish punch, and that's it. And if he lands that punch, the night is over. But he's fighting a guy who is notoriously durable. So how do you really look at it then? It's a little bit, I don't like using this phrase, but it is kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, only for both of them are heavily faded. And I mean, what do you really get from it? What do you get from beating Deontay Wilder in 2026? Really,
a lot of money.
You get money.
A lot of money.
You get money, but reputationally, like there's nothing there. And then I suppose the other side of it too, what do you get from beating Derek Chisora in 2026?
Well, you might get a world title fight against Usyk. That's one thing.
That's the only thing that this fight has actually saved us from. If you remember, before this was announced, it was expected that Wilder was, for whatever reason, going to fight Usyk in San Francisco. And then it fell through last minute. But the very thought that we could actually have been watching Usyk versus Wilder is...
I'm going to be honest. Is it any better that we're watching him fight a kickboxer?
A little bit. I would actually say a little bit, because the kickboxer knows how to move, right? Deontay Wilder has never been able to move in the ring. He's just not been a great mover. He wasn't bad, as in the third Fury fight, but overall, I honestly think at this point in time, Verhoeven probably has more to offer than Wilder does.
That could be an interesting fight.
Let's see it.
I think we know who could win that one, though. I don't think, like, even before watching this fight this Saturday, like, I already know what Wilder's going to be doing. He's going to be on the back foot straight away because Chisora's just going to be gunning him down. And maybe he does land a punch or two on Chisora, but I think the power is completely gone from him.
Look, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing a fight that goes maybe 4 rounds max, and look out for Wilder turning to the referee at every possible moment to say that Chisora hit him around the back of the head, or he did something incorrectly, or he pushed against him in a way that he didn't like. Or he just hit him. Yeah, he just hit him. He's not supposed to do that.
Why are you hitting me?
He's not supposed to do that. He's supposed to go to the ground. Bomb squad, don't you remember? So look, I've enjoyed, to a certain degree, Wilder's career in the sense that, again, he should probably never have gotten as far as he did. He has a fantastic backstory in terms of obviously why he started boxing and what he did for his daughter. And it's hard to begrudge him that. And he does have moments when he's genuinely likable in interviews. So overall, I don't wish any ill fate to the guy. But at the same time, from a purely boxing lens, he's a terrible boxer with an amazing punch. And that's it. There's no more that can really be said about the guy. His personality is a little bit questionable when it comes to how he managed to...
intense.
He's a bit intense, yeah. Well, at least he used to be intense before he did the whole ayahuasca thing and seemingly just lost his previous personality overnight and became a man of peace. But I think when it comes down to it, when he lost to Fury in the second fight, like, his excuses about the outfit that he wore to the ring was apparently too heavy, and that's why he lost. I mean, I've heard a lot of strange excuses, but that one's up there.
Yeah, the one thing that still confuses me about that is I remember before the fight there was training footage of him and I train with a 40-pound vest on every day. It's like, if that's the case, then what's the problem with the 20 pounds? That's light work.
You see, this was on fight night, and why question it? I mean, in training, it's different, right? You can wear your 40-pound vest. You might as well wear a 60-pound vest while you're doing it. It's training. Nobody will ever see you, but 20 pounds on fight night, can't do that. Fatal error.
Yeah, I think he should have a 100-pound vest on for this training camp, because I don't think Chisora is going to find it hard to actually lean on him a lot. I think once he gets in close, he's just going to lean on him constantly, tire him out, and the legs of someone like Wilder, they're embarrassing.
Look, I think in the end of the day, what's the guy's legs ever really going to be like for his height and for his build? They're never going to be all that impressive. But when you look at somebody, obviously the weight of Chisora and the general heft of Chisora leaning down on Wilder, especially at 40 years old, it's not going to look pretty. Like this fight, people have said, "Oh, it's not going to last long, and it's going to be explosive." I do think it's not going to last long. I think you're probably talking about 4 rounds, and I'd say at that point Wilder's out of there. But the other side of me kind of thinks if it goes beyond 4 rounds, we could be looking at 12 rounds of Chisora leaning on Wilder and 12 rounds of Wilder just wandering around complaining to the referee saying, why is he trying to lean on me? Why is he trying to hit me? And, can't I just get my punch off? It's going to be ugly. I really do believe it's going to be an ugly fight. Probably just kind of maybe a repeat of the Zhili Zhang fight.
Oh, let's hope not. Jesus, that was just horrible to even see Wilder doing spins and twirls around the ring and just getting absolutely obliterated. And even in that fight, like, he was landing shots on Zhang by maybe round 3 or 4, but there was no spite behind it. It was more, let me hope to God that this just pushes him away for a second. Let me get some room. And he's not been given room in his last couple of fights to work. And everyone seems to have figured that out.
Giving Wilder credit for landing punches on Zhili Zhang, essentially a static opponent. That is like crediting him for hitting the heavy bag a couple of times, because no offense to Zhang, but like there's a lot of him there and he can be punched. So look, if you have to give credit to Wilder, give him credit for landing something. But yeah, the Zhili Zhang fight was a rough watch, and the Joseph Parker fight, even, in fairness,
I think the Parker fight was worse just because of how long it went on for.
Yeah, and it was kind of flattering to Parker, really, in hindsight. Don't get me wrong, he had a nice little run for a while until the Fabio Wardley fight, but at the same time, you really look back at it now and say, how much of Wilder was left at the point that Joseph Parker got him.
Yeah, and how much did Zhang have left when he fought Parker?
Nothing.
You can nitpick into everyone's career, but I think in the heavyweight landscape, it's a lot easier to nitpick into even the top 10 fighters. Like, even in our last episode when we were talking about potential opponents for Moses Atoma, you can find flaws in all of them because there's a lot of them. And
especially when you look at these guys. I mean, look, if you want to nitpick the flaws in it, 42 versus 40, okay, 50 fights each. They're a little bit shop worn in that sense. Chisora's looked, yeah. Well, I'm being generous. I'm trying to give them something back, right? At least they're both as worn out as each other, right? I think Chisora has more mileage on him just because of the nature of the opponents that he's fought. But at the same time, look, 40 and 42. One guy has only ever had one punch that he's been able to rely on and absolutely no fundamentals. The other guy is just known for his tenacity and stamina, not necessarily his punch output isn't bad, but he's not really known for his power in terms of Chisora, I suppose. So yeah, look, is it going to be interesting to watch? 100%. Am I going to watch it? Absolutely. But is there a future for either of them at this age and this point in their career? Not really. And I think that's what the purpose of this fight kind of is. It's a good payday for both of them. And at that point, maybe it's time to bow out.
But do you believe that they're actually going to bow out? Because I still don't believe it for 1 second that either man is going to bow out if they put in a good performance.
Come on, like Chisora was supposed to retire the last time around. He'll stick it out if he gets an opportunity for a world title. I think he'll take it, even if it's against Moses Atoma down the line. I wouldn't be surprised because it's Derek Chisora, and Derek Chisora loves money, and he doesn't, as we said, he doesn't hide it. Whereas in Wilder's case, I could see Wilder going a couple of years and becoming just a yardstick in the division, just a name that people fight so that they have his name on their record. It's a sad reality, but it's happened to other guys in the past, and it could just as easily happen to him.
Yeah. So predictions?
Ooh, right. I predict that their knees are going to hurt afterwards and their backs. But in terms of who's going to win it, I'm saying Chisora in 4 rounds. I think he probably is going to swarm Wilder at some point. And I'd say the referee will just step in because I don't think Wilder is going to be able to punch back very much. I don't think he's going to be able to hold his own ground against someone like Chisora, who's going to do an awful lot of leaning, and he's going to do an awful lot of clinching, and he's going to do pretty much any trick he can find in the book in order to knock Wilder over. And Wilder being Wilder, I don't think he's going to be able to handle that. especially at this point in his career. So I'm going to go with Chisora, and I'm going to say it's going to be within 4 rounds.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as you. I'm going to say Chisora. I think he's going to knock him out between 4 and 6 rounds. I'm going to cheat a bit and not going to say which round, but yeah, I just think it's going to be way too rough in there for someone like Wilder. He's too delicate at this stage in his career, and I think the only opportunity he has in landing a punch is the first 10 seconds of each round, where Chisora has to get from his corner back in front of Wilder, and I think that's the only way that he could knock him out. But I don't think the punch is there. I don't think the belief is there, and I think Chisora kind of has his game plan already down, and it's going to be kind of like his last 2 fights against Wallen and Joyce. Just going to walk in, bowl him over, and keep doing it. And I don't believe Wilder will be able to sustain the damage.
Yeah, and look, I could totally see that happening. But who knows? Maybe it'll be a special type of hell where we'll get a full 10 full 10 rounds out of it. But look, I hope not. I actually hope it ends early for both of their sakes. Honestly, I don't want to see these guys go into later rounds and end up staggering around the ring, unable to throw a punch.
This could be a boxing masterclass. We don't know.
Oh, my God, it's like you know what? It's the opposite of. It's the opposite of. Do you remember that fight between Vasily Lomachenko and Guillermo Rigondeaux? 2 double Olympic gold medalists. Technically on paper, the most like technically proficient fight of all time. This is probably the exact opposite of that in every possible way.
Wilder as an Olympian.
Yeah, and we'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. Yeah,
we'll leave it there. He was an Olympian. Can't take it away from him. So was Usyk, funnily enough, and Anthony Joshua.
That's how they're going to sell the fight.
There you go. Three great Olympians: Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, and of course Deontay Wilder, who was there. Amazing.
They're just giving no medals that year.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, I know it sounds bad, but this kind of is the participation medal of boxing. You have 2 guys into their career getting that final payday, or what we assume is the final payday, or maybe even hope is their final payday, and then off out into the sunset for both of them. But as we know, probably won't happen like that. They'll both probably fight on another couple of years, have a couple of terrible losses, but that's boxing.
Yeah. Well, I think both of us are in this and saying that we hope both of them come over like healthy, and hope the knockout isn't that bad if a knockout does occur, because at this age I'm surprised they're even getting sanctioned.
I'm not. Sadly enough, I'm not.
Actually, I'm not. Yeah.
Like Danny Williams was still fighting up until recently in his 50s. You've Mike Tyson over in the US fighting at, 56? You have Oliver McCall at the moment, who's in his 60s, like his late 60s, trying to get a fight so that he can be the oldest professional boxer, I think, as a heavyweight. Something to that effect.
I seen a fight over in Thailand just on TikTok. I think it was yesterday. 70-year-old fighting, and he got a stoppage. Look, I don't know what to say about that. But it's there.
If we're going to take anything from this, we're just going to say that, look, one is 42, the other is 40. At least it isn't Moses Atauma versus either of them. So from a safety perspective, it doesn't mean much, but it's a bit better than putting in somebody like Atauma, who is in fact half of Derek Chisora's age, which is weirder and weirder the more I think about it.
Yeah, and to see the difference in their technical proficiency as well it doesn't make sense.
Leave your technical proficiency at the door for this one. Just enjoy the spectacle. That's the only thing you can do with a fight like this. Just enjoy whatever you see.
Bucket of popcorn and just watch chaos unfold.
There's no analysis for this. There's just not. This is just 2 guys.
This is war.
Yeah, well, quite literally.
Yeah.
Quite literally, but Yeah, I'm excited to watch it in a sense. Unfortunately, it's a sense of more of a curiosity, but at the same time, it is what it is. Both guys have been entertaining. I'll give them that. So fingers crossed we get an entertaining fight on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's been the Absolute Boxing Podcast predictions. We will be back next week, hopefully talking about the fight, and hopefully it won't be much of a disappointment. So until then, we'll catch you next time.
See you later, guys.